My name is David Ortiz. For those that don't know me, I am third generation service member. My grandfather was infantry in World War II. My dad was Air Force Academy grad of 79, and I was a combat aviator in the Army myself. I'm first generation American on my mom's side. She migrated from Mexico when she was only 15 years old. Um, and my whole life, the vocation of my life has been about public service, whether it was resettling evacuees or creating educational exchanges with universities around the world or economic opportunities around the world for the mayor's office for the city of Houston, or whether I was flying helicopters serving my country in a more intense way. It's always been about public service. And it didn't stop just because I survived a catastrophic crash when I was deployed to Afghanistan that left me paralyzed from the waist down. I kind of felt like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like you can strike me down, but all it's going to do is make me angrier and stronger, right? But so I came to rehab here at Craig Hospital. That's what brought me to Colorado. Craig Hospital is the best spinal cord and brain injury rehab hospital in the US, and I would dare say the world. And that's what led me to fall in love with Colorado. I was PCS here to Fort Carson. I was medically retired in 2015. And then I started advocating and lobbying for veterans at our state capitol, fighting for higher education reform, criminal justice reform, and mental health care, and then got recruited and asked to run for office. So, when I was asked to serve in a different way, again, public service is my addiction. I could not say no. And you all decided to put me here. So thank you so much for the work you did in putting me here. I saw the question earlier, so I'm gonna go into the committees I'm in, the bills that I'm in, and kind of open it up for questions and answer after that. So the two committees that I got assigned to were both healthcare committees, and I think that was the right choice by leadership. I mean, my life literally depends on healthcare. For those of you that can't see me, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm a wheelchair user. I'm paralyzed from the waist down. And so the two committees are public healthcare and human services. The other one is health and insurance. So those are the two committees I will be sitting on. The bills that I will be bringing forward that are my bills that I'm the prime sponsor and starting in the House. So the first one is a veteran preference hiring bill for veterans in transition if it's within 10 years of your DD 214, and that is a document you get when you are discharged from the military. Then any business, any small business, large business is allowed to preference hire a veteran. And the reason why this is critical is because there's a golden window when service members are transitioning from military service to civilian life. The taxpayer already paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to train them, to make them leaders. A lot of the time, some service members just need a little help figuring out how those skills translate to civilian work leadership. And so what we find often is if you have, let's say you have a female veteran that had 10 years of communications IT experience, and you had a civilian IT expert, female, they both apply for the same job. I'm an IT manager. I look at the civilian resume. I know what those businesses are. I might know some of the managers that work there. That's very clear to me. I look at the service member's resume. Okay, I see that they were in combat twice. I don't know what that means. 9 times out of 10, they're going to hire that civilian. That's the way that it works. So this bill, one is to recognize the service and the less than 1% that raise their right hand and swear an oath to the Constitution, but also sets up service members for success when they're trying to transition and build up their resume and successfully transition into civilian life. My prime sponsor on that is a Republican. Her name is Rep. Terry Carver. For y'all that don't know her, my favorite describer of her is small but mighty. She was an Air Force JAG officer. She's amazing. She is a Republican. You should look her up. The next bill I'm looking at is a veteran treatment courts bill. If you're not familiar with veteran treatment courts, what happens is if a veteran commits a nonviolent crime and their crime can be tied to untreated or undiagnosed issues rooted in PTSD, they plead guilty. They immediately go on probation instead of going into jail. And they can be reunited and reintegrated back with their families and society if they meet certain gates, which means like meeting a psychologist, meeting a counselor. It's a very successful program. Not only is it the right thing to do, but it saves the state money because it costs us over $40K a year to incarcerate an individual. So what this bill will do is if there's a jurisdiction that does not have a VTC, a veteran treatment court, because it's not all across the state, and that veteran qualifies for a VTC, the judge can contact another judge in a jurisdiction that does have one and request a transfer. The judge receiving has to agree to it, but what this will do is it'll have zero fiscal impact, and that's important in a time of COVID-19 when the state budget has been hit a little bit, and it'll still give that veteran an opportunity to take advantage of that program. The next one was actually brought forward to me during the campaign by a constituent who said he was a year and some change outside of paying his debt of being incarcerated. And he was like, hey, why don't we do something to help those that have paid their debt that are trying to transition back into regular life, a get out of jail starter pack. So I took that to heart. That's another bill that we're looking to bring forward. In order to prevent a fiscal note, we're looking to see for those inmates that are working if they can pay for their own starter pack. So let's say you go in, one of the examples he gave is some go in, their ID expires, and when they're applying for housing, they don't even have a driver's license or an ID to be able to apply for housing. So we're going to look at instituting different levels of starter packs based on what they can afford. Eventually, I would like to look into public-private partnership and eventually state funding. Now is not the time, though, but we're still bringing that bill forward. Another bill we're looking at is making federal ADA law state law, which is going to give those of us that live with a disability and fight accessibility issues every day another avenue and another set of courts to fight for accessibility. ADA was passed in 1990s. It's been done 30 years. It's time. The next bill I'm looking at doing is going to be supporting state apprenticeship programs. There are some amazing good actors and union organizations that facilitate strong, robust, transparent, and accountable state apprenticeship programs that transition individuals to livable wages and good jobs. But there are some actors out there that use state apprenticeships as a means for cheap labor and or free labor. So we just are creating a layer of accountability and transparency that makes sure everyone is acting in good faith. The last thing I'm working on is a sunset law. And what I mean when I say sunset, it's to keep this law going. This has been passed previously, and it's a state compact around physical therapists and occupational therapists, specifically around speech pathology and audiology. So those are the bills that I'm bringing forward that are going to be starting in the House. There's a couple that I will be sponsoring that are starting in the Senate, one around preventing veteran suicide and one around restoring honor. So that's kind of the quick lowdown and dirty. And I am proud that a lot of these bills are sponsored by members of the other party. And again, this speaks to a core value of mine. Yes, I ran as a Democrat. Yes, I have those values. But at the end of the day, we belong to Team America. We belong to the same American family. My dad is a Republican. I have plenty of amazing men and women that I serve with that are some of my best friends that are family that have that mantle of Republican. And so based on what we've seen the past week, that is the result of division, lies, conspiracy theories, and hate. Let's be very clear about that. So we need to decide whether we're going to be a part of the healing and a part of the solution and a part of working together, or continue to be a part of the problem. I want to be a part of the solution. Everyone here I know definitely wants to be a part of the solution. You can follow us on our social media platforms if you want to keep up to date. It's David D as in Delta or dog, Ortiz, capital C, capital O, or you can sign up for our newsletter. That's another way to keep informed.